Today's video is going to be attacking a tight lower body. So we'll be going after both the front sides of the legs and then also the back sides of the legs. And to preface, this movement pattern and all these stretches are going to be done on the ground. So want to make sure that you have a comfortable space, whether it's carpet or you could also use a pillow to place under your knee as well. So what we're going to be doing is starting with our right knee on the ground and our left knee is going to be up into a lunge position. I'll be showing these from a couple of different angles, but we'll be in a lunge position, and what we want to do now is send our hips forward. As we do that, we're going to feel a really good stretch on the front side of my right leg, and that's going to be the leg that is down onto the ground. So just be holding this stretch. Take some breaths through here, and we're again sending our hips forward, and we can do that by squeezing our backside or think about pressing your hips, again pressing them forward. Take some deep breaths as we roll through a couple of these stretches. Now, if you don't feel comfortable on the ground or on the knees, then make sure to go back and watch some of the previous videos that were released, and we'll definitely find some areas that we can get good stretching in without putting you in a spot that you feel uncomfortable. Now we're going to go ahead and straighten out that front leg. I'm going to point my toe up towards the ceiling, and then I'm going to be reaching my hands down towards the ground. Now, if you can't make it all the way to the ground, I can barely. Placing both hands on top of the thigh definitely will do the trick too. I'll be looking to point the toe up the entire time. It's going to help give a stretch in a little bit different of a spot. Just breathing through here. Again, this might be one that is better suited for at home. Depending on where you are working, if you're working at home or in the office, this can be a little bit uncomfortable and a little bit strange depending on your workspace, but this is a great one to add in throughout the day if you have an opportunity specifically to be out on the ground. Now, we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, placing the left knee on the ground, coming up into that lunge position. Again, from this time, I'll show from the front, but I'm going to be sending my hips forward. A good stretch on the front side of that trail leg. Now, this is a good sequence. I mentioned stretching out the lower body, but if you have tightness in your back, specifically low back, some of that is going to come from tight hips and tight glutes. So this one can be definitely used if you're dealing with some back tightness by loosening everything up around the back, which for a lot of us is going to be coming from tight glutes and tight hips. Excuse me. Only about 10 more seconds on this side. Today's definitely been one of those slower pace days, but we're going to get after some of those good stretches. Now, we're going to straighten out the front leg. Again, I've got my toe pointing up towards the ceiling, either reaching down to the ground or keeping my hands on top of my thigh. I'm going to go ahead for the thigh piece just because I couldn't quite make it all the way to the ground either. Now, if you need to come out of that, it's getting a little uncomfortable, take a breath and come right back on in. If you need to be grabbing something for some balance, if you happen to have yoga blocks or something along those lines at home, great option if you can't make it all the way down to the ground. Just taking those breaths as we work through. All right, we're getting in a position now where we'll be on our hands and our knees, or that tabletop position. Taking cat-cow. Now with that cat-cow, we are going to press the stomach in towards the ground as you look up overhead. And then to get into our cat position, big arch of the back, looking back between the legs. Just slowly take this back and forth. This one feels amazing if you are dealing with back tightness. This is one of the top ones. As we go through these different types of stretches, my goal is to give you different opportunities to go through stretching that maybe feels a little bit better for your particular body. So if the seated ones don't do it for you and coming down on the ground does, then now you have just more options. There's no right or wrong. I just want to provide you with as many tools to feel better throughout your day. Take one more cat-cow. From here, we're going to be widening out our stance. So bringing the knees out wider, and we'll sit back onto our heels, reaching the hands out, getting more into a child's pose.
I've got my hat on. We'll go backwards for this one. If you're dealing with a tight back and you have not tried child's pose, this would be a suggestion. It definitely tends to help release some of that tension and pressure. Continue taking those deep breaths as we move through this one. We're taking 3 more deep breaths here. Last one. Slowly coming out of that. We'll be finishing our last couple of stretches together here today by coming into a seated position. So the first one is going to be a wide-legged forward fold. So we're going to go with our feet as wide as we can. Now, maybe you have to be back here propping your hands back behind you. And if this feels like a good stretch, then you're right where you need to be. For some of us, we can press a little bit more forward. Some of us be able to reach our hands forward, reaching out in front. Wherever you are able to get, that's going to be in a good spot for you. A little tip or trick, I like to place something that is weighted. So if I'm working out in a gym or I'm at a home gym, I'll put a weight just out in front of me that I can grab onto to use as a target. But honestly, setting up by a chair or a table would also do that same trick. If you're able to be having your hands out in front, slowly taking your fingertips and walking them just a little bit further. If they're back behind, go ahead and we'll press back, or press forward rather, getting some additional stretching. 3 more deep breaths. So we'll bring our feet together and continue working, stretching along the back side of the body. So for some of us, we can reach out in front. Some of us, we can place our hands underneath our knees. If you need to have your hands back behind you and this is getting you a stretch, again, you are in the right space for you. So I'm just gonna go ahead going for that hinge. You can relax the neck. That gets a little bit of a rounded back, but holy camole, that definitely gets the stretch. Releasing, relaxing the tension along the back of the body, whether that's on the lower body or feeling this in the middle of the back as well. I'll be taking one more stretch here together, and that is going to be our figure 4 stretch. So we're working the outside of the hip. So my setup position for this, we're going to go with our hands behind our backs, propping us up, feet up on the bent knee position. We'll be taking the right leg, crossing it up and over. Notice my hips come off of the ground, but then we need to sink them back down. If you are not able to sink them back down, move that front foot a little bit further forward or move the hands backwards. Again, that setup position, bent, hips come off to get settled, and then bringing the hips down. So I have my right foot across my left knee, and the stretch is gonna be on the right side hip. Again, we work this hip action a lot because some of the lower back tightness comes from really tight hips. And naturally, if you're in a spot where you are sitting for a lot of the day, hips just get tight in general. We'll relax that one down, shake that out a bit, and then bringing the left leg up and over and bringing the hips down, working that same figure 4 stretch on the other side. Now, different options for this stretch. This is the figure 4. We could be working a traditional pigeon pose, or if you feel comfortable, more comfortable, we've done this one in a seated position on a chair as well, crossing the leg up and over and then hinging forward. It's just, again, a lot of different ways to attack this. My goal for this is for you to be finding different ways to loosen the spots that are feeling really tight for you. Take 2 more deep breaths. And that final one, relax that leg down, getting a couple of shakes of the leg. And that is a little bit of stretching for the lower body, getting into the rest of your day. Hope you enjoy this, guys.